Hello, my name is Quinn Zora, and I am the Near at Home lead at Start Early. Joining me today for this conversation is Rhonda Crooker, one of the home visitors who helped create Near at Home. Rhonda has several years of experience integrating near home visits into her practice. Rhonda is now one of our wonderful Near at Home facilitators. We are honored to provide this short introduction to Near at Home, why we need Near at Home, how it was created, and how it might be useful for you in your home visiting practice. Before we begin today, I want to talk about safety. Anytime we discuss ACEs, we are talking about trauma. Everyone has a trauma story, whether it is trauma with a big T or a little t. No one escapes childhood without some degree of adversity and difficult situations. And right now, our whole world seems unsafe and unpredictable. We want to normalize the internal reactions or external behaviors that may arise when we are talking about trauma, even if we don't discuss specific details. Some of you may start looking at your phone or choose to leave. Some of you may fall asleep, get bored, or start your grocery list. All of this is okay and are ways to keep yourself safe. Please do what you need to do to feel safe. In the last 3 decades, scientific research has demonstrated how deeply adversity in childhood becomes embedded in biology, behavior, and risk, and how these can be passed on to future generations. This body of science, neuroscience, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and resilience, we call NEAR, and it's one of the largest public health discoveries of our time. We believe that parents and caregivers have the right to know this critical health information. Experienced home visitors know it is not enough to talk about risk. We must also talk about hope and resilience and brain science and the generational impact of our life stories. The Near at Home Toolkit provides strategies for engaging parents in discussing neurosciences and using the ACEs questionnaire in a safe, respectful, and effective way for both the home visitor and the family. The Near at Home Toolkit is a free document designed as a self-study guide to help home visitors explore foundational principles, reflect deeply on the complexity of trauma, and learn language and strategies to talk with families safely and effectively about neurosciences. Near at Home emphasizes safety and reflective support for the home visitor as a critical element in this process. The Near at Home Toolkit was created, tested, and revised by home visitors, infant mental health providers, and experts in the field of neurosciences and home visiting in Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. There are 2 parts to Near at Home, the toolkit and facilitated learning, an intensive, reflective, supported learning process focused step by step on how to put theory into practice and bring near to families and home visiting. We have another video specifically on facilitated learning. So Rhonda, one of the things I thought we could talk about, and it's a question we've heard from home visitors and those who support home visitors and systems is Near at Home a good fit for all home visitors? How have you heard people talk about that out in the field?
Yeah, I would say the big answer to that is yes. We believe it's important for anyone in home visiting, relationship-based home visiting practice to have some grounding in infant mental health principles, and near at home learning does support that. However, there are some things to consider when thinking about bringing near at home learning into a home visiting program. One thing that we ask programs to think about right off the top when they're considering whether or not it's the right fit for them is how do the goals of near at home fit into the larger goals of their particular home visiting model?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the specific outcomes near at home learning supports, of course, are for children to reach their full potential, growing and developing within relationships that are healthy. And of course, we want to decrease the ACE burden on the next generation. So a goal is for children to have fewer adverse experiences and more protective, nurturing, buffering experiences than the previous
Mhm.
parenting generation.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say on that?
I was just going to say that one thing we've heard is that near at home fits best for home visitors who are part of their model or their role is to have sensitive conversations with families and do assessments such as depression screening or IPV. We've heard from some home visitors that they would never have those type of conversations. And so likewise, they probably would not be discussing ACEs, trauma, the neurosciences.
This is true. Yeah, this is true. Um, yeah, so if home visitors are having those kinds of sensitive conversations, the exciting thing is that Near at Home can help support skill building within that, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. Oh, there is one group that Near at Home learning is not necessarily recommended for, and that is brand new home visitors, right?
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
Um,
much work to learn a new model of home
oh,
visiting that
yes.
once you've got your model down, it's a great time to expand your skills.
Yeah. And Near at Home doesn't also provide entry-level knowledge of the neurosciences. It's not an entry-level learning
Yeah.
experience necessarily. And so brand new home visitors might also need time to build some knowledge of the neurosciences and trauma-informed care before they jump into
Mhm.
um, answering the question of now what and how do I bring this to the families that I work with.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you. So you see on the screen our theory of change, and we wanted to talk a little bit about this. And Rhonda's already started mentioning some of these goals because people say, well, why do you want to talk to families about ACEs and neurosciences? And our goal in bringing near to home visiting families is that children will have less adversity and more resilience than prior generations. Near at home guides home visitors on how to introduce parents to near to parents and to offer the parent an opportunity to discover their personal ACE score. The home visitor supports the parent in making meaning of their adversity and their resilience and in making difficult decisions to protect their children, such as deciding to seek mental health care. Home visitors are uniquely positioned to help families mitigate the effects of past, present, and future adversity through supporting protective, responsive parenting and safe attachment relationships. Home visitors also experience positive impacts with the implementing near at home. Home visitors have shared with us that they found they had increased compassion for and a deeper understanding of families and more stamina to continue to serve challenging families. So, Rhonda, let's talk a little bit more about our goal of supporting parents and making meaning of their life stories. How have parents responded to your near at home visits?
Sure. I'd have to say generally parents have been really open and curious, and some of them have been able to express gratitude for the information. It takes skill for home visitors to develop kind of their internal knowing about when and how much to share about near with families. And so once I became more comfortable and confident in my own judgment and ability to handle sensitive conversations, I really never had a family respond negatively to
Mhm.
near discussions. Um, One example I can think of, and this is just what happened when I was able to share one little tidbit of the neuroscience with a client. So not a whole, it was before that we had had the full on near conversation. We hadn't discovered her ACE score yet. None of those things. It was just one little tidbit that I shared. And so this client was in her late 20s when I met her, and she was pregnant at that time with her seventh child. Um, she had left home at the age of 14 because of the toxic stress that she was experiencing there, and met a guy and ended up having 6 children. And all of them then were removed by CPS by the time she was in her early 20s. So now she's in her late 20s, pregnant with her seventh child, and she carried a lot of guilt and shame around the repeated experience of having children removed from her care. Um, so on this particular day, when she brought it up again, um, I was able to share with her what we know from neuroscience, that our brains don't fully develop until our mid to late 20s. And furthermore, the prefrontal cortex that's responsible for judgment and insight to be able to guide complex decision making, that's the last part of the brain to develop.
Mhm.
And so she was, after I shared that, just that one little piece, she was quiet for a minute or so. And then she looked at me and she said, "So I was trying to make adult decisions with a brain that couldn't do that yet."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, and then over time, um, a few visits later, she was able to share with me that just that little bit of information made a difference for her, that she was able to start to, well, her shame and her guilt started to decrease because she realized, um, what the truth was, that her brain,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a powerful gift to give that family, to help her make meaning of what a difficult life story. Yeah. Thank you. So, one of the things that we do in Near at Home is we have some foundational principles that we explore in the Near at Home toolkit. These include using a social justice lens, thinking of ACEs as attachment trauma, and exploring being with our own ACEs. ACEs, as specified in the original research by Kaiser Permanente and the CDC, include only adversities that occur within the parent child relationship. From the infant's or child's perspective, these events represent a rupture or disconnect from safety and security. Skills and capacities developed within the parent child relationship support children throughout their lifetimes and serve as a buffer to other potential traumas or adversities. And this is what we do. As home visitors, we are highly skilled in supporting and guiding healthy parent child relationships. Another foundational principle we explore is the context of trauma and adversity. Near at Home has adapted the traditional ACEs pyramid to reflect this perspective. We believe that historical, systemic, and generational oppression, racism, and other traumas are the foundation on which adversity within the family becomes trauma or ACEs. This legacy of trauma is compounded by the current social context of the family, potentially leading parents coping as best they can, and yet they may be inadvertently creating ACEs for their children. To be clear, the progression in this pyramid honors the amazing ability of young children, all of us really, to adapt and survive. It is meant to indicate the pathway to increased risk, not the prediction of poor outcomes. Home visitors have shared that they feel overwhelmed thinking about how to address all the trauma and adversity that families are coping with. They have expressed relief with the idea that they can begin to support families with trauma by focusing on ACEs. The Near at Home process gives parents a choice by offering information, assuring safety, being respectful, allowing time and space for reflection, and by always closing with hope and resilience. This quote by Dr. Folletti, one of the original ACE study researchers, guides the next section of the toolkit, the step-by-step guidance of the core elements. Dr. Folletti says, slowly, I have come to see that asking and listening and accepting are a profound form of doing. So we organize the core elements into categories of preparing, asking, listening, accepting, affirming, and we added remembering. This is a snippet of the listening section. All the sections include the what, the why, and examples of how to talk with parents. These examples were shared by home visitors who were implementing Near at Home. One quote is, after the client or parent has shared their total ACE score, ask, how have these experiences affected you? And then wait, wait, wait. Home visitors have shared that this process of waiting can be very challenging. The why section explains that for the parent to truly feel heard and seen, we must stay self-regulated to avoid imposing our own interpretations onto the parent. You honor their life story through your spacious listening. So Rhonda, can you share a little bit what it was like for you to learn about the critical importance of self-regulating, of that waiting?
Sure. I really love the spacious listening.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
or- I think discomfort with silence is one of the themes that comes up really often in near at home facilitated learning. It's common for us to want to rush to fill silence, and it's usually out of our own discomfort, sometimes not wanting the clients to feel uncomfortable either. So I'll just share that really quickly that I am an introvert. I process internally before I am ready to express externally. And so I need time and space to think and reflect and contemplate. And even knowing this about myself, it still took me a while to get over the feeling that I had to have the right answer or any answer, waiting in the wings for anything that a client might share. Um, and as I think back on it, that's a lot of pressure for anyone to
Mhm.
hold, is feeling like they have to have a pat answer waiting.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember a client earlier on in my home visiting career who really taught me a lot about the importance of allowing for silence, for finding a way to stay regulated to allow for more contemplative space during home visits. She was a teen client who she was very skilled at giving only 1 or 2 word answers.
Yeah.
Even to open-ended questions, she managed this. Um, and some of my questions or my thoughts or comments or wonderings would just be met simply with a shoulder shrug and no words at all.
Yeah.
And so, of course, before very long, I found that I was working very much harder during home visits than she was.
Mhm.
And I had no idea what was landing with her and what wasn't, and what meaning she was making or not. And it just was very muddy. So I decided to try a different strategy. I decided to wait for her to respond to me with more than 1 or 2 words. And the first goal I set for myself was for me to wait just 20 seconds before I said something else. And so I decided the way that I would do this is I would alternate pulsing my feet down into the floor, my toes, and I would count. So 1, 2, 3, only I tried to do it slowly and deliberately so that it really would be 20 seconds. And so counting this way helped me stay present in the moment with the client. And also, it didn't allow my mind to wander off and try to conjure up, what am I going to say next? Like, it
Yeah.
just really helped me stay present. Um, and I was surprised that she started filling the silence.
Oh.
And so at first it was just brief, but then, if I followed her train of thought and what she brought up, then we were able to have some brief two-way conversations.
Uh,
And over time, as I learned to wait and I was able to tolerate more discomfort and increase that window of waiting, even longer than 20 seconds, the conversations with her became longer and deeper and more fruitful over time.
wow.
So, it's taken time for me, and I'm sure it takes time for
Mhm.
anyone who's in the process of learning how to just wait. Um, so I think it's important to develop strategies and come up kind of with what might work individually for the home
Yeah.
visitor. Um, but it's a real gift when we're able to stay present and not allow our
Mhm.
brain to do what it wants to do, which is to
Yep.
rush to try to come up with some sort of answer or what we're going to say next, right?
Yep. Yeah. And we've heard from home visitors that when they have a hard time self-regulating and waiting, that the thing that they come up with is often rather trivial and dismissing. Not that they intend that to happen, but um, it's part of the stress of being a home visitor is we're supposed to know what to say. And so this process of not saying something to wait, like you said, takes practice and it's a skill.
Hmm. Yeah,
Well, thank you, Rhonda, for sharing your experiences with us. And
sure.
thank you to all of you who are joining this exploration of near at home for going deep into some of these ideas. The next slide here has where you can download the near at home toolkit. It's for free, as well as some other resources and information. Our next video conversation will be exploring near at home facilitated learning. So thanks, Rhonda, and thanks everyone.